is relating to managing change. So I suppose the best thing to do is talking about being Ramadan ready. So we're going to be talking about tips and ways to help us move forward in terms of doing that. So Anila, do you want to start with a bit of a dua, inshallah, and then we'll talk about some of our what we want the audience participation to be.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. So nice to be back. It doesn't feel like it's been that long and a year's gone by so far. So let's open with the dua. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum. So yes, today we're going to be talking about personal goals. Naila will be starting off with the individual goals, and I'll be following on in regards to goals for the family as a whole. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan 2023. How's it going for you, Naila?
Alhamdulillah, it's going well so far. It's been one day so far, and we've done 2 tarawih. So inshallah, what we're going to be talking about today, and what we want to do is a question if people want to text in on 077 488 55055, your personal goals that you are doing for Ramadan. Okay, so are you Ramadan ready? Okay, so what often people say when you ask people, are you ready for Ramadan? They talk about, the samosas they've made, the spring rolls they've made, they've got the Ramadan fridge full, and they haven't really talked about their personal goals and what they're striving for, because it isn't a month of feasting. It's a month about personal reflection and reflecting on how you're going to make yourself a better person. Because our end game, what is it? We want to get to the Akhirah, we want to get to Jannah, we want the Prophet ﷺ to intercede for us, and we want him to be that person who is going to help us in that journey. And our end game should be focusing on that. So when it comes to Ramadan, when I'm talking to my students, when I'm talking to my family, when I'm talking to my friends, a lot of them are kind of overwhelmed by the fact Ramadan is coming. So, it says that, the Sahaba, they used to prepare 6 months before Ramadan. We know that not everybody's in that place. Okay, so it can be really overwhelming. So what
it's funny you say that about the Ramadan, because a lot of us think of Ramadan and we get quite excited, but actually the other side of that is a lot of people do get stressed over it.
That's right. So some people will say, look, I'm looking forward to it. I can get involved in a personal transformation about who I am and what I am. But ultimately, then they get started and then they either run out of steam or it starts badly and you think, okay, I can't pick this up. But even if it starts badly, it can end well. And what we're going to talk about today, if we can, is a step-by-step program. So I'm going to talk you through 3 areas that I feel that'll be really useful. So again, please text me if you've got any personal goals that you're working through or you think would be good or you'd like to share with the audience on 077 488 55055. Okay, so the step-by-step plan is, first thing is not feeling overwhelmed and setting goals that are kind of realistic. Now, the month of Ramadan is about reflection. So before we get into full throttle, maybe we've not been praying all our salah on time and we haven't been practicing Mondays and Thursdays or the white days of the month or catching up the fast that we should have been doing. So fasting is a big shock to the system. You would have got the headaches, the hangry, all of those sort of symptoms. And you're kind of thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can, sustain what I need to be doing. And almost to a certain degree, your nerves become weak at that point. You think, I don't know if I can do this as much as I should be. And that kind of puts you off. What would you say, Anila, on that?
Well, when I was at work yesterday, it's funny you say that. A couple of the sisters that I work with, they don't normally visit me in the room, and they kept coming in. So we're so hungry, and one of them sips coffee, you see, to keep her going throughout the morning, and she was actually feeling it more than the one who has the lunch at 1. But yeah, I think the first one really a lot of people did, and that's to be expected because your body is not used to not being fed. So it was all expected. And we did the whole, if you're not well, you can open it. But alhamdulillah, nobody wanted to open it. It was expected.
SubhanAllah. So once we've got an idea about what kind of goals we need to execute those goals and make progress. So sometimes people make really long lists of things that they want to do and then they can't execute it and then they feel like they've been inadequate through the month of Ramadan and they feel like I can do it for a month and I can't do it for any longer. But it's about staying energized. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is about feeling overwhelmed. So sometimes, we look back. I think the starting point should be look back on what you did last year. Okay. So what things do you think worked well?
Because you're competing against yourself, aren't you?
That's right. So you look back on what you did last year and you think, right, okay, what went well, what didn't? What do you think I can pick up on, which I didn't do as well as I could have done, and move that forward? The second thing I'd talk about here is comparing yourselves with others. That's another reason that makes you feel overwhelmed. You know, somebody else is doing Tarawih and finish a whole Quran, and, you know, they've done the white days and they did the Shawwal and they've done Shawwal, and you just think, oh my God.
Yeah, and they don't sleep.
And they don't sleep. They just have 2 hours of sleep and they just feel great.
Or they've made 1 million samosas.
Yeah, there's that as well. So that you compare yourself against each other. And so what you need to be looking at is yourself. It's a personal journey, isn't it? And then the final thing is, you know, like you complaining and pointing out what you should be doing. So, you know, your parents might nag, or your friends might nag, or you might hear somebody else say to me, you know, why don't you do X, Y, and Z? Because, you know, this will make you a better person. So it just makes you feel more overwhelmed.
Well, I kind of felt like doing that yesterday. So I was reading my Quran on my prayer mat, and the children were sitting beside me waiting for Fajr to come in. And they were, I don't know what they were doing, but I'm going to give benefit of the doubt that they were probably doing dhikr. And I could feel myself wanting to say, guys, why don't you get your Quran out? And I thought, I stopped myself and said, you know what? They're doing their thing and you do yours. So yeah, absolutely. You know, it is self-reflection. Okay. That doesn't mean you don't remind, of course.
Of course. But, you know, sometimes when we keep on nitpicking, then actually that can be having a negative effect. And so as a parent, as a murabbi, as a teacher, as an advisor, as a neighbor, as a friend, sometimes it's just gentle reminders, try and remind in a good way. And the Prophet ﷺ's example was do by example.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, so if we do, then everybody else is going to follow through, isn't it? We'd like to think, inshallah. Okay, then. So moving on then, I want to talk about how that you're going to focus on the 3 things then. So in your plan of action, you're going to focus on your ibadat, your behavior, and then sustaining some good habits. Those are the 3 things we're going to focus on. So those are the 3 things we need to start with. So the easiest one is ibadat. Okay, so in terms of that then, I want you to think about some suggestions. I'm going to give you some suggestions for what you can do in terms of what could be beneficial. First one could be praying on time. So maybe you've not been praying on time, you've left it to the later time. Maybe you've not done your sunnahs, your nafils, and, you know, maybe that's something you could start with. So you could focus on doing that. So that could be a possible suggestion. You could extend the salah, so maybe doing different surahs, etc. You could also catch up on missed salah. So, you know, while you're in wudu and you've done a fajr, and you might think, okay, how about I add that I could do a tahajjud, or I could do a catch-up fast, that, you know, a catch-up prayer that I didn't do, and I could do that at the same time. So that's just with the salah, okay?
I know people make timetables, don't they? Make timetables of the salahs that they think they've missed, especially as women. And then they write down. I know you did this with your fasts.
Yes, I did that. And I did that with my prayer as well. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. So I downloaded an app, right? I downloaded an app and I actually calculated it. So what I did was I went back to some of those early years when, you know, I wasn't quite sure if I did them all. So I was more punctual as I got older, but there was a period of time when I was just adjusting between becoming, you know, Balik and not being Balik. And then at that point, there's a few there that I need to work on. It was quite a few years ago, so I had to work it out. So I worked out. So the app is called a Qadha app. So you can download it and you can calculate how it is, and then you can then tick them off as you do them.
That's brilliant.
And it also tells you if you did 5 every day, you could do it in 2 years. So it's really good like that. It's a good reminder, so you can tick them off as you're going along.
I think that's really helpful, actually. Qadha app.
Yeah, and I downloaded it. So how I worked it out is you have 365 days. So obviously in Ramadan, I'd be really good. So I'd have done those 30 days. So I could remove that month. And then winter months, I was probably doing some salahs, like the winter ones like Maghrib and Isha were easier, and Fajr. And in the summer, because of school, college, whatever, I might have found that Dhuhr and Asr, because they didn't have prayer facilities in my college at that time on my school. So then there's some that I know that I would miss. And then I calculated it, and then I worked it out from the time I was Balik, and then I know how many it is.
Brilliant.
So if you do it in a really methodical way, then you've made progress. So you know how I was saying about missing your salah or doing your salah or thinking about salah. Now the other thing you can do is, where could I add an extra? So you could do Chash, you could do Ishraq, you could do, like I said, tahajjud. They're not very big salah. Yeah. You might have had wudu and you just think, you know, what shall I do? I could read some Quran, but I could do this as well. You could also do, you know, the sajda that you have to do when you read the Quran at certain points. Sometimes we read the Quran and we forget to do them. So that's, again, a really small thing you could do.
Brilliant. That sounds good.
Okay, then. So the second thing you could focus on, which is another suggestion, is reading your Quran. So you could read with tajweed and listen to online. I like to listen. I'm an oral listener, so I have to listen to it and then I can learn it that way. Different people have different learning styles. Some of them prefer a teacher. Some of them like to watch YouTube. Some like to have someone reading with them, or you read together in unison. So what we did as a family is we used to get together in a group and we'd read Surah Al-Mulk. One person would lead them and then we would read together with them. And you get a bit more confidence reading out aloud, because sometimes you don't know you're reading it wrong until you hear that you're reading it wrong, or you're mispronouncing, or you need to stop at a certain point. So reading together is the starting point, and then you can break off into smaller groups.
Sure.
So like a small surah, like it's only 30 ayahs, so it's something that you can do. It's a reasonable, and it's a joint thing you can do together.
It's also consistency, isn't it? If you're doing it consistently, eventually you'll pick it up. There's a lot of apps for memorization at the moment.
Yeah, that's really good. And then also, when you know the surahs that you do read, okay, go back and check to see that you're pronouncing them still correctly, because it's easy that you can mispronounce them. So go back and read through the ones that you read regularly and see if you're pronouncing them correctly, and then just make sure that you're not adding words, taking words out, because obviously that would affect the meaning. And then again, that's another form of ibadat that you can do. And reading a Quran. So for example, maybe you're not one of these people who read it every day, but try and see if you can get into a routine where you're spending 5 minutes, if you can, daily, to just read some Quran.
During Ramadan,
that's
right.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Okay, then number 3, third suggestion is dhikr. So during every salah, it's recommended that you do your certain dhikrs on your fingers, potentially because you get more reward. You could do the 33, the usual ones, but there's lots of Muslim du'as in the Quran and that are recommended that you can do. And obviously praying for your family, praying for you, praying for, your akhirah, your parents, the wider community, just those type of things that are really good, that you want to,
It's probably an idea taking a minute to write down. Because sometimes we think we're going to get everybody in and we're going to get everything that we need into our du'as. And when we're actually sitting there, it's all gone. So actually, I think it's a really nice idea to kind of list all your du'as.
That's it.
SubhanAllah. And that will really help you during the last 10 days.
Yeah, because I've got certain books, but there's also recommended ones that I like to read, so I do those. Sure. And then the next stage then, so the next thing I want to focus on is your behavior. Now, I was talking to my students the other day and I said to them, if you prayed your Quran and you did all your fasts and you did all your salah, will that take you to Jannah? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, no. And they were like, what? And I said, so what happens if you were backbiting? What happens if you were a bad person? What happens if your character wasn't good? Allah likes good character and he wants that as well. So these are your basic duties, okay? But you also need to bring into the equation the good character, because our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's character alongside these basics, you can't diffuse the two. You can't separate them. They come together. So the second thing you can work on is your character. So tell me, Anila, what sorts of things would you feel that you need to work on?
I think every mother could probably relate to this. I think the biggest one is just before you're about to open your fast and everybody wants a piece of you and you want to sit and make a bit of dhikr. This year I've said to myself, I'm literally going to take myself out of the room and do that dhikr and then come back in, because it's easy to sit at the table where all the food is and everybody's chatting and you're telling kids, do your dua, but they want to tell something, and they're children, they want to say something exciting, and then you forget what dua you were on or what you were reading. So this year I've kind of said to myself that I'm going to take myself out of that, or I'm going to try and be a lot more patient when the children do. So my 10-year-old kept her first fast yesterday, and she kept it all day. So she just wanted to tell us all about it, and I wanted to do my dua, and then I kind of went, okay. So I'm a bit more present. So I can say to him, can I speak to you later about that, please? So being a bit more pleasant and also being kind. And this is something that I'll talk about when I go on to talk about goals for the family. But yeah.
Okay. So the second thing is working on your speech. So, talking politely, giving everybody a smile because it's a charity, avoiding getting into the kind of losing your temper. And the other thing I want you to focus on, and that's the final thing I want to mention on, is working on your actions. So, helping by tidying up around the house, helping your parents, helping your family, helping society, like food banks, litter picks.
I know there's a litter pick, isn't there?
There is. So there's things that you can do that can help the community, volunteering. There's lots of things you can do. You can prepare food. You can offer to share chores. You can check on your neighbours, whether they're Muslim or not. Is anybody needing any help? These are all extra things. These are the sunnah practices. So again, doing that. So there's loads of things that you can do. Now, the idea here, as a final point that I want to make here, is that over this period of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is judging your behavior, your actions. And if you can continue doing them for a month and be, really, on it, that you're spending a portion of your day doing these things. Like Quran's going to be in the morning, I'm going to read my salah on time, I'm going to find some time to read a book and revise some of the Prophet's sunnah, his biography, reflect on my own behavior. And then you can make a timetable. They're all on apps as well, and you can download them. Some of the masjids have got them. You can put it on there. And you can just gain from that experience. You can see your progress as you're doing that, and then you feel you're doing something. And in psychology, we know that if you do something for 6 weeks, it becomes a habit. So the idea is if you keep going after Ramadan, having done these habits, and then you continue for another 10 days, it will be something you can sustain. Because what we don't want is that we're Ramadan Muslims, and we don't want to be where the moon comes out once and the masjid gets full, and the moon comes out again and the masjid's empty. Like we're just, temperate.
SubhanAllah. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. That advice was amazing. And I think, like you said, I'm hoping the brothers are all getting ready to go off to Jummah. And my sisters are listening to this and hopefully taking some notes. I'm really, thank you so much for telling us about the app. We'll be using that. Thank you. So goals for the family. Now, when I said I would do this, I was actually thinking of it for myself, because I think as women of a certain age who do have families whose children are getting older, it's not like when they were younger, when it was, colouring books. It actually was a bit easier, wasn't it? Colouring books, and, you could sit with them easily. Now they're teenagers, they've got exams, time is of the essence. It's a game changer, isn't it? So we've got to kind of up our game as well as mums. So I start off with setting spiritual goals. Now, for me, the spiritual goals are things that you set for your family, which will encourage family traditions in your family. So I'll give you an example of my family. When I was younger, my father was always at the masjid for those 30 days. Every single day he was doing his Tarawih. And my brothers all went to Tarawih. And now my brothers all go to Tarawih because it was something my father did. And as a result, by default, they do it. That doesn't mean that's how I can see my brothers doing, and now they're taking their children. So subhanAllah, it is encouraging the next generation. SubhanAllah. Another thing a lot of our elders were doing, finishing the Quran, as soon as Ramadan comes in, like you said, that they're that's their goal. Let's finish Quran. And for some people can't do that, but the people who can do that, I've seen, families who do that, and they have like competitions within themselves and who can recite the most Quran. It's actually really beautiful,
But it's also a good opportunity to think about memorization of those Quran surahs that they do. So it's good that they have a competition, they want to read it, and then it creates a spirit of enthusiasm.
Well, we did something a little different, because sometimes, like you said, it can be heavy doing a whole Quran. So what we did last year was, my husband said to the children, all of you have a para each. Let's you can finish them. I mean, obviously, some paras are longer than, so the ones who were more able, we gave the longer paras, and the ones who weren't, we did. And then it became like a healthy competition on who could read the most Quran. And alhamdulillah,
so you could do a Quran Khatam, couldn't you, in the whole within your family?
Absolutely. It's also an excellent time to teach your children. Like you were saying, it takes 60 days to make a habit. Again, credit to my husband for this. I remember a few years ago when the children were younger, and the reward of reciting Ayatul Kursi straight after your Fard Salah. So during we were all at home. I think it was during COVID. We were all at home, and we were reading all the salahs together, including the tarawihs. So it was a better option. It was more of an opportunity to teach the children. So he would recite Ayatul Kursi out loud straight after the salah, and the children would recite, and everybody picked up Ayatul Kursi. So now by default, after their salah, they recite the Ayatul Kursi. And it's just a really nice way, as you as a parent getting reward, but also setting up your generation, the next generation, your children's generation, for them to teach that. And we know when, we think our children don't listen, but they pick up everything. And they will, hopefully, when they have children, be doing exactly the same things, hopefully, and the good things, inshallah, and we'll get reward as well. So it becomes sadaqah jariyah for us.
Inshallah.
The other thing about Ramadan that I absolutely love is that you can increase the visibility of Islam in your house. What do I mean by that? Some people do decorations. It's not a must. It can just be some lights. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be anything major. At the moment, I've got a lovely friend of mine made for me a fridge magnet which has salah time, so you can rub them out and then you can write your salah time for the day. And then there's also a calendar where you can mark off the days of Ramadan. So just visual things like literature around that. I know you really love certain literature that you've been following for absolutely years.
Yeah, so I like to read Riyadh al-Jannah, so I like to read that. So that's like I've always had that. But like a book that I'm currently reading is like spiritual medicine.
Wow.
And then, you know, there's I love reading the Seerah, and just any books that remind me, the Companions of the Prophet books I bought when I was a uni student, go back and revisit some of those old books. Sometimes it's like wearing an old pair of slippers. you wear these things and it's like you're not wearing these things, but you wear these stories and you just feel like I need to go back and revisit, and we can share the stories. Ibn Kathir, you know, his tafsir of Quran, you know, Imam Ghazali, you know, there's just so many, you know, things that I like to read and share with the children.
And you can leave them lying around, can't you, Naila? That's it. So what I've done this year is I've taken out just a small little table next to where we pray, and I've put the literature. I've left the Qur'ans on there because, you know, we're always, where have I put my Qur'an? Where have I put? So they're all in one place, and when we sit down to pray, they're all in one place, and everybody can find them. Also, this year when I went to Asda, they were selling the calendars, as we know, and they're brilliant for youngsters, aren't they? Although my elder one did say to me, "Where's mine?"
Of course.
And then colouring books for the youngsters.
Yeah.
There's so much. And then, subhanAllah, there's so many activities as well that you can do. If you look online, there's so many activities making things, arts and crafts for the children. And I'm sure you and I have both done that for the children.
Yeah. My daughter came back she made a Ramadan advent calendar.
Wow.
Yeah, she made it, and she's yesterday was, who did she give the chocolate to? I can't recall. Oh, it probably got stolen, but it was after the fast, of course. But yeah, so I do think that, you know, like there are opportunities to just be creative and think about, you know, Islam and make it fun. I sometimes think people think that Islam is a very serious religion, but in actual fact, there's an element of beauty coming together as a community and sharing in the joy of understanding and engaging in that, and making it nice for the kids so that they don't grow up thinking, well, it's a stern, harsh religion, and actually I don't really want to be part of it. But actually by doing the sorts of fun things, then they can engage with it and love it.
Well, and a lot of the masjids, mashallah, this year, because Ramadan falls into the Easter holidays, are doing a lot of activities for the children, mashallah. So a lot of the masjids are. So, you know, I would advise people getting in touch with the masjids to see what they're doing for the children. Another way of making spiritual goals is creating a dua list, which we spoke about earlier. And that'd be beautiful to do with the children, actually, you know, to create that. I mean, at the moment in my house, you know, 4 of them have got exams. So just, you know, I remind when we're sitting and praying, remind each other, can we make dua for, you know, kids because they've got certain exams coming up. And
you can do group
like
duas as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. My husband normally leads that.
So what we do at iftar time, you know, when my daughter was first fasting, my youngest, she sat down and I said to everybody, we're going to do a group dua, and I want you to just tell me one thing that you prayed for. And of course, my youngest said to me, I prayed for a cat.
Oh,
I'm thinking that's very sweet, but moving on.
Does that mean we're getting a cat, Naila?
There you go. SubhanAllah. So, you know, the power of dua, she's saying, I'm hoping that it's going to work. You know, it's magic in terms of encouraging us to get a pet. So there are all sorts of things, and it's nice to hear what they pray about. So sometimes it's very silent, you don't know what they're praying about. So I said, share one thing that you're praying about and we can hear what you've got to say.
That's nice actually. So somebody sent me something where, am I rewarded for cooking in Ramadan? So one of the other goals that I thought would be a nice way of getting the children involved, and again creating that goal for the children to be involved in gaining reward. It says that the sister asks, the Muslim woman often spends a large portion of her time busy in the kitchen preparing various types of food, so misses out on the opportunities of the month of Ramadan. O Sheikh, do you have any guidance for her, and will she be rewarded for cooking? The Sheikh, Sahih ibn Fawzan, yes, she will be rewarded for this because she is preparing food for the fasting people, and this is from cooperation upon righteousness and piety, and she will be rewarded for this. Cooking and the housework does not prevent her from saying Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, and reciting what she has memorized from the Quran. Cooking should not prevent her from dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. I thought, wow. So that takes me on to the next point that I make, which is involving your children in the food prep. So young children, they can make cupcakes, P-Day, simple things. And what I do for my younger child, she loves to give all her friends food during Ramadan. So what I've taught her is how to make pizza, so Turkish style, so P-Day. And she gets so happy, and we go around giving it to everybody, all of her friends. So something like that. I know a lot of people are making those dates that you open up in nuts, and I know you make them really nice.
So you could do date balls. So what I do, is, do you want to do a little recipe for you? Okay, so I soak some of the dates in some water to make them a little bit soft, and then I have a different combination of nuts. So it could be walnuts, a little bit of coconut, not too much. I might do normal almonds as the main one, and then whatever I've got at home. It might be what's the other nut? Pecan. I just grind them down and add a little bit of honey, and then I just bind them together. And then I make them into balls, and I roll them in a little bit of coconut and powder, and then that's it. And it's a nice little energy ball, and the kids can do that. It's not difficult because it's like Play-Doh, and that's one of the things they quite like. So anything
it's
that
about
involves
getting them involved, isn't it? Absolutely.
You could do that with kebabs as well. So they often make the kebabs with meat because they love it's just like it's Play-Doh basically. So anything that's gooey, they love it.
Excellent. Another way of getting them involved is getting them to go give food to the neighbours.
Always. I remember doing that a lot when I was little.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Same with me. And then yesterday I was at work and I came back quite late. So, and I wasn't expecting to come back late. So, it was all systems go. And I didn't even think for 2 minutes about the neighbours. And my daughter said to me, she says, "Mummy, are we not giving the neighbours any food?" I thought, subhanAllah. I mean, it was a nice thing. It was sad because I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot. But it was nice that she reminded me, because we've been doing it for years, subhanAllah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do that, but it's really important that we encourage our children. And I remember recently a sheikh saying that parents come up to me when their children are at uni and a bit older, and they're like, "Sheikh, what can we do?" And let's get them when they're young, let's get them to love Allah and love the deen when they're young. And this is a brilliant way of doing that.
When I was at university, and we had Greek neighbours, when I was at university, my next door neighbours were, and we used to send food to them in Ramadan. They would. It wasn't because they were my street neighbours like in my hometown, but I still carried on that habit. I just think it's really important.
Because you picked it up from home,
That's right,
you understood the concept of it.
And sharing your food, even when we do the group iftars and things like that, like you bring a snack, and and I always say this when people turn up to your house, and husband might say, "Is there enough food?" I said, "Well, Allah says if you pay for 2, you can share it for 3."
Mashallah, mashallah. It's created. What we want to do is create a legacy. We want to leave a parampara where our children are doing things which is sadqa jariyah for us, but also it's good for them, and the deen is with them in these beautiful ways. I think a new one that it's a sunnah that's been revived more recently in this country is sighting the moon. So I really wanted to go, but because I'm not used to that, I said to the children, we're going to go.
Where were you going?
Apparently in Hamilton they had a moon sighting.
Really interesting.
In one of the parks there. I said, "Kids, we're going to go," but I forgot because it's something I don't ordinarily do.
Of course.
It actually, but if they were used to that, subhanAllah, they would not have forgotten. I would not have forgotten. But
randomly running around a park to look at moons.
That's a really nice.
They'd love that.
And then praying there.
Oh,
that's your Janmars.
That sounds lovely.
So that's a good one. The other one is learning together. Like you were saying, learning together as a family is a really good one. Again, they can listen to the radio. There's
YouTube.
There's lots of lovely Islamic cartoons as well that are online. And if you don't want to do social media and television and things like that, you can actually do charitable events together, like Naila was saying. You could have a charity box where the children are putting money in for charity. And there's so many pledge days on here. We've got lots of pledge days coming up. So the children can get involved in that, sponsoring orphans, baking for charity. Like Naila mentioned, there's litter picking now as well.
One thing that I've done that you can do personally and in a group is that, online there's a lot of organisations where you can make donations online. So you can do it like every day. So, if you don't have petty cash.
As a direct debit.
Yeah, as a direct debit. So you could do it by person to person. So, that could work. So this could be a way to do it. So you could just automate it, and then it takes it out every day.
I've done that, yeah.
And so you can do them online, and then just send you a little text message to say that it's
So I tell you what I do with that is I do that for a small amount just in case I forget. But then whatever's going on and whoever's asking on the day, I tried to give them.
No, I think you need to do it in lots of different ways, because you don't
absolutely.
know.
Spread it around.
Yeah, that's it. Spread the love.
Yeah,
share everything. Your food, your time, your energy, your smiles, your good nature, your good character, because it's a barakah for you, but also it's a banner for those people who know nothing about Islam, because you are going to meet people who are going to say, "Oh, why do you fast? That doesn't sound like a great idea. How do you manage?" But it's actually all about self-control. It's all about personal reflection.
Absolutely. One of the other ways is involving the children is making better relationships, and especially in the home, because a lot of the time during Ramadan, we are in the home, and then obviously when we go to the masjid, being respectful. But one of the ways is, especially when you've got teenagers, is to have this mantra of kindness during Ramadan and really go for the kindness during Ramadan. One of the ways is, serving each other with food. So my husband, they went to the masjid, and my daughter went, my husband and my son went. And the girls pray in a separate area at this particular masjid. They pray in a separate building to the boys. So my husband day before, said to my son, he walked my daughter to the masjid entrance, and my son just walked off to the boys' entrance and waited for his dad. And my husband explained to him that, we should be protecting our women, and we can't go in until she's gone in. So, this is what we do. So yesterday, alhamdulillah, he came home and he said, I'm so proud of him, because today he took his sister to the masjid. So, there's things that are more apparent during Ramadan, because remember, our children are trying to be the best they can be. And so anything that we encourage them during this time, they're going to listen, and they're going to sit up and take notes.
So the other interesting thing about all of that you're saying is that, we know that shaitan is locked away. And I was saying this to my kids yesterday, and I said, when you do things, right, you cannot say, right, that it was shaitan that made me do it. It's actually a personal reflection of aspects of your nature that you need to work on. Absolutely. Okay, so if you're being lazy, or you're feeling a bit lethargic, or you don't feel like being very pleasant, or you don't feel very forgiving, then these are things that, in the moment now that you've been made aware of, you can do something about.
Identify them, note them, work on them.
Yeah. And one of the things I would also say is that, when you're talking about the group relationships, everybody has got a fraught relationship with some member of the family, Absolutely. Whether it's a sibling, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a co-worker, whether it's working on those relationships, and knowing that in Ramadan, I'm going to try much harder with those relationships.
And seeing, because relationships are about two people, and seeing what is your element here, because it's easy to turn around and say, that person, it's their fault, and sometimes we need to just, especially in Ramadan, we can sit back and kind of say, it is about me. And it is about us, isn't it? It is about yourself. And I hope and pray that our listeners, inshallah, benefit from these reminders, inshallah, because I definitely have. Thank you, Naila. I really appreciate.
There's just one other thing I just want to talk about, if I can, which is like the dua. And one of the things I want to focus on for you as people out there, including myself, I'm saying this as a reminder, is that in those dark hours when I'm sitting alone thinking about myself, I don't think about myself in a proud way. I think that actually Allah is very aware of all my inadequacies. And in that moment, I want to ask Allah in humility that, you change me to be a better person, because I know that there's so many things about me that only He knows are really there, that maybe I can put on a facade in front of others and say that I'm a wonderful person, or a wonderful wife, or parent, teacher, whatever it is. But actually, I know my heart is full of all this rust, and it's not clean. And my eyes, my ears, my hands have done things that I'm ashamed of. So I need to focus. So I say to the kids that, for everything that we sit down and take note of, we should be humble and look at ourselves first. It's easy to point the finger at everybody else. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. I'm unhappy about this. But actually, maybe we were part of that unhappiness to somebody else. And if we want Allah's mercy, then we have to be merciful, not only to ourselves, but to others.
Beautiful reminder. Thank you, Naila. That was absolutely. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for that. So, you were saying that people could text in and let us know if there's anything that they do.
If there's anybody else who's got any personal goals that they're gaining or they want to work on, please do text us on.
Or they can share with us, like Naila's Qada app.
Yeah, so there's loads of things out there online that you can access. So feel free to get involved if that's something that you want to do. I will say that in terms of, when you're making dua, it's a good opportunity to start thinking about how you're going to rectify things and ask Allah to help you make those changes. And one way that he can help you make those changes is by asking him. Sometimes we can get a little bit arrogant and we think we're just going to pray and we're going to read Quran, but we're actually not focusing on our personal character per se, that we could change to become a better person. You know, maybe we're not smiling enough. Maybe we're not being forgiving enough. Maybe we're not letting go of grudges. Maybe we got used to doing certain things in a certain way and we're not got an open mind when we're dealing with our family. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And also the habit of saying, you know, in my day we did it like this, and not being open to change. Because the whole purpose of this particular session is to think about change, and so change should be empowering. Change should be, it is scary, but we're changing for the better.
Inshallah. Absolutely.
So do tell me, what do you think about the month of Ramadan? How do you feel personally that you need to improve in terms of yourself? What goals are you setting for yourself?
I think this year, personally for me, I think Quran is a very big one, because I think, being a busy mother and having to do a lot of cooking and etc. And with everything else, it is the month of the Quran. And I think this year priority, with all those goals in mind, will be Quran. And my son was working out, Mummy, if you pray 5 pages a day, 5 pages with every salah, you'll be able to do the Quran. And as women, there is a period that we miss due to lady issues, and I think that's why a lot of us do get a bit disheartened, because sometimes we're not able to finish the Quran, and I think this year for me it is about really reciting the Quran, sitting down and taking time after my salahs with the Quran. That's hopefully my goal, inshallah, of day 2.
Okay, inshallah. Another thing that I just want to mention as well is that when you're doing your personal reflection and doing your plan of action, think about where the pockets of time are the best. So for some people, they're morning people like myself. I'm a morning person. So I get up and I can do lots in the morning. So there's barak in the morning. I like mornings. So I like to do a lot of my things then. So if you're a morning person, slot in the things that you want to do at the beginning of the day. And then it starts the day well. And you just feel like I've achieved something at the beginning of the day. You might be one of these people who just start to have a slow burn and you start to get going at about sort of lunchtime, sort of after 12. And then you could be a night owl and you're one of these people that, Tarawih is where it hits your peak and then you're buzzing until Fajr time. So if that's you, again, slot it into those times. So, when you're doing your dhikr, you're doing your Quran, you're doing your adhkar, you're doing your du'as, you're asking for forgiveness. There's a whole load of things that you could do. And one other thing you can do is get the kids to get more involved in doing these sorts of things, and they can focus on a little task. I mean, we did a thing that, if they did something that they shouldn't be doing, they got given a task. So they'd have to put some money from their savings into the sadaqah box.
That's a good idea.
And that way, sadaqah box just got full really quickly. But it had a dual purpose. Do you know what I mean? And it made them think about it. The other one is a book of deeds. So what I did was we got a piece of paper and I said, right, okay. So every time we say we'll do something that we don't really like, I want you to write it down, and I want you to share what share it. And they were like, what? And I said, well, your book of deeds is coming out to you on Judgment Day. So let's get into the zone. Okay, so we write something down, okay, and think about it. And it doesn't have to be, nobody's asking you to say something major, but it was very simple. And the reason I got what I was working on is getting them to apologize when they've done something wrong. So what happened is that now,
to be aware, because sometimes
that's it.
You just say and do things and you don't even realize you've done that or said that to her.
So then they go back and reflect, because we've written it down, and I said, so-and-so said this to me, and I got really upset, and then I got really upset, and I said, right, so how do we resolve that? And they said, so they both apologized, and that was what I was getting them to do, because it's really easy to get into a habit where you say things and you think, right, okay, I'm going to pretend it didn't happen, but for the person who's on the receiving end of that, it's not nice, and it's getting you to be more accountable. It's quite a complex way of thinking about it.
It's a really good idea, Naila. Really good idea. I like that.
Okay, I'm just going to recap, and then I think it's our time to go, because our time is up.
SubhanAllah.
So today, SubhanAllah. So today we talked about the whole idea of being Ramadan ready. So reflecting on your time, thinking about your behavior, your dhikr and your du'as, and how you can actually increase your chances of being successful. How we can be successful, and the way to do that is focusing on things like working on your speech, positive comments, silence, avoiding gossiping, backbiting, controlling your temper, and then asking Allah to help you with your actions. Maybe smiling, being more patient, helping and involving in preparation of food, tidying up, seeing to the neighbors and their needs. helping out with volunteering, and then the third area was looking at doing physical acts, and that could be your zakat, it could be sadaqah, it could be lillah. We did the book of deeds, we did the, Quran reading together as a back, and then, doing the apps. So everybody can have an app, they can focus on one thing, and you can go back on what you did last year and see what you can do, work on your mornings, afternoons, evenings, when's your best time to do all of that. And then, what I'm doing as my personal task, if I share with you, I'm working on trying to read Quran every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something I'm working on. I'm also trying to focus on, balancing my time so I don't feel tired, then I'm not cranky at the other end. Okay. So, sometimes you can lose it at the tail end. So, and I don't want to do that. So I know that that's a real big task that I need to work on, that I get overwhelmed at the last minute when everybody else becomes mehman at home, okay, while you're rushing around trying to get everything done, okay. And that's just a thing that I have to work on, because I'm like you, I'm 15, 20 minutes before the end. I just want everything to be ready, and I just want to focus on du'as, and everybody needs to be in the zone. Otherwise, what's the purpose of fasting if you're just going with an empty stomach and you're just you're taking you're losing it in the last sort of 20 minutes. The third thing I'm working on is being more patient. It's so easy to go from 0 to 100, right? When someone does something that's annoying, and then you just find yourself at the point at which you say things that are not appropriate. And I'm going to focus on doing more sabr and say, okay, all right, okay, so we don't want to do that right now. Okay, so when would you like to do that? And then, okay, let's just have a bit of time out, and not getting into a confrontational situation where, I'm,
it's being a responsible adult, isn't it?
That's what it boils down to. Because you see, my children have got older now. So, what worked in the past, you're adapting the parental role.
Anymore, does it?
No, you have to adapt your parental role, right? But also as well, you want to send out a message that coercive behavior is not acceptable, isn't it? So you can't just simply say, I expect you to do it right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're not 3. Okay. So I can't talk to them like that. So it's kind of adapting to the fact that they're adults, and listening in and having that feedback from them.
Mashallah. Noble goals.
SubhanAllah. And I think also as well, for me, is stopping bad habits.
Yeah.
Time wasting is mainly one.
I think that's all of us, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, just, I could be doing all kinds of nonsense activities, and I'm just thinking, well, where's the time gone? Or, and I don't want to be spending my time away from the end goal.
Yeah. Again, noble goal. And I hope and pray that our listeners have all benefited from this, and make your own goals. You don't have to do what we've told you to, but this is really good ideas for you to share with your families, inshallah, to make you stronger, to make your bond stronger, make your Ramadan better, inshallah.
Okay, so next week's show, I just want to, as we're winding down, next week's show on managing change is we're going to be talking to Travis Frayne. Travis Frayne was a victim of one of the attacks in London, and he's going to be sharing his story about how he managed with the change of the injuries he sustained and how he's been able to move forward. So please look forward to that show, and hopefully, inshallah, we'll speak to you soon.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.